Welcome back to Lessons from the Front, and to today's special edition when Fireteam Elias will be commemorating the 80th anniversary of one of the most intense battles of World War II, the Siege of Bastogne. This game was part of the Annual Pasir Ris Gaming convention held at the Elias Community Centre, where we came together to honour this pivotal moment in history. In late December 1944, as part of the Germans' counteroffensive Operation Autumn Mist through the Ardennes forest, the town of Bastogne was surrounded by Wehrmacht forces, the 26th Volksturmgrenadiers Regiment, the 901st Panzer Lehr Division, and the 5th Volksturmgrenadiers Division, aiming to capture the vital crossroads that was Bastogne. The Germans believed the town would be an easy target for a quick victory, but they vastly underestimated the determination of the American troops defending it. Bastogne was held by elements of the 101st Airborne Division, along with units of the 10th Armoured Division. These men found themselves cut off from reinforcements and surrounded on all sides by a much larger enemy force. In freezing winter conditions, with food, ammunition, and medical supplies running low, the American defenders held their ground under constant artillery bombardment and relentless infantry attacks. On December the 22nd, the German commander sent a surrender ultimatum, which was famously rejected by Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe with a single word.
The answer is nuts.
This defiant message became a symbol of the courage and resolve of the American troops. Despite the odds, the defenders of Bastogne never gave up. The siege lasted for over a week, and on December the 26th, the 101st Airborne was relieved by General Patton's Third Army, turning the tide of the battle and effectively ending the German offensive in the region.
Got it.
The successful defense of Bastogne was a pivotal moment that not only stalled the German advance, but went on to mark the end of the Nazis in Belgium and France. The courage and tenacity displayed by the American forces in Bastogne remain legendary, and their victory was a turning point in the Battle of the Bulge and the war in Europe. So please join Fireteam Elias as we do our part to remember the crucial battle and honour the heroic events of Bastogne. Alfred will be leading the German forces, whilst Nabil steps into the shoes of General McAuliffe, commanding the American defenders holding the town. Let's dive now into this epic showdown.
The Americans in Bastogne were hard-pressed for both men and ammunition. With few heavy weapons to spare and even fewer men, and unsure of where the Germans will advance from, the men of the 101st Airborne had no choice but to disperse their forces around the town. What few armoured cars they had with them were hastily turned into static pillboxes, with the hopes that their firepower might stem the flood of the Germans to come. Bazookas and AT guns were also deployed to both the reserve and the front line respectively. There was little else that the Americans in the town could do but wait for the enemy to strike. The battle began just as a thick fog descended onto the battlefield. The troops could hardly see more than a few feet in front of them. The Americans, dug in amongst their trenches, could hear the metal tracks of the panzers trundling down the road, but could do little but wait for them to come into the range of their AT guns. The Germans, on the other hand, took advantage of the poor visibility to move their troops out of the woods to the east of the city. The panzers, including Panthers, advanced down along the main road and the rail line. Panzer Grenadiers mounted in their half-tracks began to load their guns as their NCOs passed out their final orders to their men.
Jetzt gibt's das vor die Flinte, Mädels, verstanden? Jawohl, hier. Ja, dann verhauen wir mal den lieber ein bisschen, hä?
As our forces began our advance to Bastogne, we attempted to rain hell down on the defenders in the town. We unleashed barrage after barrage of Nebelweffers and mortar fire from our good vantage points in the hills above the town, the devastating explosions wreaking havoc on the Americans below.
southwest of the city stood 3 tanks of the Volksturmgrenadiers charged towards the American lines, hurling high explosive shell after shell onto the men of the 101st. Whittling machine gun fire cut down the Americans who held on stubbornly, fighting back with sporadic sprays of heavy machine gun fire, trying to pin down the German assault guns. The armoured cars proved to be, shall we say, less than effective, as many virtually evaporated in the face of such heavy attack from the German panzers.
Whilst Siah and Philip's forces were pressing towards Bastogne from the southwest, their Stokes making a mess of the American defences, ably supported by the elements of the 5th Volksturmgrenadiers.
Achtung! Feuer! Nächste! Feuer!
Joshua's forces began to apply pressure from the northwest, initially barraging the airborne defenders with mortars and suppressive fire from our well-positioned MG-42. His grenadiers charged across the snow-laden fields and closely supported by his Hetzers. Our plan to take Bastogne was looking good. Simultaneously, elements of Zul's and Joshua's Panzer Lehr forces broke from their cover in the woods from their east of Bastogne and made excellent progress there too.
Feuer!
However, it was from the direction of Foy that we made the most progress.
Germans pressing into the town centre. Wow, look at that.
In spite of the airstrikes from the air, our panzers and grenadiers were able to break into the outskirts of Bastogne and secure one of the 3 roads leading into town.
The only hope now lay with the 10th Armoured Division making its way rapidly to the town. Historically, the 10th had come up against the Volksturmgrenadiers screening the southern flank of the German advance. Personally, I had hoped that they could do the same and smash the Volksturmgrenadiers occupying a small hamlet down the road from Bastogne, but miscommunication and acts of sabotage from German commandos deployed during the Ardennes offensive meant that the US relief force ended up further away from their intended objective. Instead of ending up behind the Volksturmgrenadiers in the hamlet, the tanks of the 10th Armoured found themselves in between the US Paris and the Stokes. A confused melee erupted as Shermans blasted the German assault guns from close range. Despite these small victories, the confused deployment created a huge traffic jam, thus preventing the remainder of the 10th to arrive into Bastogne. The US Airborne forces now had to continue the fight alone. Historically, 2 civilian nurses, Augusta Chiri and Renee Lemaire, put their lives in danger to save many of the wounded US parabats, some even returning to action. To remember the brave Angels of Bastogne, Eugene built a special rule into our game that allowed US Airborne casualties to return to combat on a roll of 6, as for bolt action medic roles. This rule enabled a small squad of parabats to reinforce the perimeter of the town and help slow the German advance. In spite of their overwhelming numbers and the US defenders running low on ammunition, the Germans were not able to take a second of the 3 objectives within their allotted time, and thus, when Eugene had drawn the final order dice at the end of turn 7, history had repeated itself and the town of Bastogne had not fallen to the Germans.
And so, just as it happened historically with McAuliffe, Nabil and his team of American players hung on for a narrow victory against Alfred and the other German players. We trust that you enjoyed the contents of this video. Please do show your support by smashing the like button and subscribing if you haven't already done so. I'd like to say a thank you to all members of Fireteam Elias that helped in the background setting this game up, and also to Elias CC for the opportunity to host our big game at this event. Let's go now to Nabil and see what he had to say about our game. All right, so we're here with Nabil. He was the commander of the American forces in the Battle of Bastogne.
Yeah.
Right. So, what did you think of the game?
Well, I think it was really good. I know initially as the American player, I was really quite intimidated by the amount of German armor that was going to be playing. And the amount of artillery, the amount of infantry, was really quite frightening. Knowing that I'm just holding a single town, I had to like kind of turtle up and then just hope for the best. But I think,
so you put all those. I mean, historically, that's what you did as well. Is the American parabats, the 101st, they were dug in around Bastogne, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And you're saying about the amount of German armor that there was?
Yeah, I mean, there was like Stooks, Panthers, Panzers, armored cars. It was all of the good stuff. But not for me, I was an American player, so it's quite scary.
I think with the Germans, the way I feel they played, actually they hampered themselves. If you think about all their angles of advance, 4 angles of advance were all through the woods. And in the first 2 turns, the visibility was really poor, right? So it was limited to 18 inches. So they didn't need to hide in the woods. They could have just come through the gaps between the woods and put more pressure on you as the American player, right?
But I think this was something which I was speaking to Eugene about off camera first. But it's a dilemma that every wargamer has.
Right, what's that?
How much to be aggressive? How aggressive are you going to be, and when? So it's getting that seeing that golden moment is I think really differentiates between the wargamers.
I think it's a small little decision of when to do something, right?
Yes, when and how much to be aggressive. So I mean, like, I would have just went all in first, but it might have worked this game, may not have worked in other games.
That's true. If you go aggressive too early, you could actually die early.
Yes, correct.
But if you go aggressive too late, then you're not going to win, right?
So that's the key, as a ball gamer.
So do you think in this game the Germans may have erred on going in too late?
Personally, yes. I mean, like, one of the reasons why I was so scared, because I know how many transport vehicles they had. They had like 3 trucks. They had I think it was like 5 half tracks.
So they were quite mobile, right?
And they had like veteran infantry. So like, if it were me, I would just push them in. Like 7
You would have
squads of
gone in
veteran
harder.
7 squads of veteran infantry. Very hard to deal with.
See, what the Germans didn't know is that you had a limited supply of ammunition, right?
Yes, that's right. I had 4 turns of shooting. That's it.
And as they say, hindsight is 20/20. To be fair to Alfred and the German players, they came really close to taking all 3 objectives. All right, so Nabil, big question. Did you enjoy that game?
Of course, Fireteam Elias is the best place.
Till next time, happy gaming!